Welcome, everybody. I'm so pleased to be starting the next season of the Deconstructing SBIR webinar series and to be bringing you the first episode of the season, the 24.1 Pre-Solicitation. It's time for a new phase. I'm happy that I'm going to be joined today by two folks. Danette Williams, who we work with very closely with the Office of Procurement Operations, and Pat Dillon, who is the founder and president of Minnesota SBIR Inc. But before we start chatting with those two fine ladies, I would like to do a quick overview of the SBIR program for folks that may not be familiar with it. So the SBIR, or Small Business Innovation Research Program, was established in 1982 by Congress. Its goals are to make sure that the federal government can partner with agile and innovative small businesses to be able to help get our federal needs met. This is done through a phased process. So the pre-solicitation that's out now, 24.1 pre-solicitation, talks about these, but I'll give them to you high level. The phase one is for the feasibility. You'll have, if you're selected to proceed with a phase one, you'll have 5 months and $175,000 to be able to provide that feasibility proof to the federal government at DHS. From the phase one, you will have if you're awarded, you'll have the opportunity to submit a phase two proposal to be considered for phase two. At that point, you'll have 2 years and either $1 to $1.5 million to be able to develop a prototype to demonstrate the capability of your proposed solution. And from there, you're eligible to receive phase three, which is non-SBIR dollars. The great news about this is the entire process that you go through to get to this has some benefits. One, the SBIR funding is non-dilutive. So you will have, as an awardee, own the SBIR data rights for all of the information, including the intellectual property that is developed during the execution of this effort by you. And then we'll have the ability as the federal government to go out and do a directed award with you as a prior SBIR awardee for efforts that derive from, extend, or conclude your prior SBIR work. So this is a fantastic way to be able to get the federal government to a place where we can leverage the innovation that you guys have to develop technologies that fit our needs. So several months ago, we went out with a call for topic call internally to see what challenges we had within DHS that we wanted a solution for, but we really didn't know what that solution would look like. We prioritized and determined which topics may be able to go into the solicitation. And then we worked with OPO, like I said, the Office of Procurement Operations, and Danette Williams to get out that 24.1 solicitation. So I'm really pleased right now to ask Danette to join us to give us more information about that 24.1 solicitation. And if we can bring up the slide so that she can prepare to speak to it. So Danette, are you out in the cyber world to join us?
I am here, Dusty. Thank you, Dusty. And good afternoon, everyone. I am excited to be here today. And I'm excited to hear that we have robust participation from the small business community. I just want to say thanks again to Dusty for giving us some background on the SBIR program. What we know is that SBIR demonstrates that small businesses are not incidental to the nation, but small businesses are critical to the economic health and development and defense of the nation. So I'm here with you today to provide you with some important dates. As you will see on the screen, we have released a pre-solicitation. I know Dusty kept mentioning solicitation, but this is actually the publication of a pre-solicitation on sam.gov. And this pre-solicitation will be active and accessible through December the 14th. Within the pre-solicitation, we also provided a notional schedule for the solicitation. Those dates that you see here are the anticipated or estimated dates, and these dates can be changed or are subject to change based on the government's discretion. So we are providing these dates as a courtesy. However, these dates could change if the government deems it would be in the best interest to change these dates. Also in the pre-solicitation, you will find 6 topic areas. And those 6 topic areas are in Appendix A, and those topic areas express the innovative solutions that the DHS program will seek from small businesses. We encourage you to read those topics, and I emphasize again that the topics that you find in the pre-solicitation may or may not be included in the final solicitation. So for additional information in regards to the solicitation and other information, please access the bit.ly URL that we provided below, where you see view the topics. I won't go through the topics one by one, but Dusty may speak more to those topics. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Once again, welcome. And I hope you find the information provided in this webinar useful. So Dusty, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for correcting me on my improper use of the solicitation, pre-solicitation. It's out right now as the pre-solicitation. So, and appreciate the clarification on the estimation of those dates. So the great news is that you can keep checking the sam.gov site that is our bit.ly. If there's any updates, then those will be posted there. And certainly always we'll provide some more resources so you can make sure you're staying in touch with any changes or updates or new things happening. So thank you so much, Danette. Now I'm super pleased to be able to be joined by Pat Dillon. As I mentioned, she is the founder and president of Minnesota SBIR Inc. And Pat, you have such an amazing background. I would love for you to be able, because I could read some things, but I'd love for the audience to be able to hear from you about your incredibly interesting background and how it is relevant to what we're talking about today.
Oh, well, thank you, Dusty. I appreciate that. I'm really thrilled to be on the call today with all of you. For the small businesses, of course, that are on the call, you've made a really good decision to learn about the Department of Homeland Security and their SBIR program. So as Dusty mentioned, I have a very eclectic kind of a background. I have been involved with the SBIR and STTR programs for about 30 years. And but I also have had a very long career with the United States Navy. I really started out my life after high school, and I joined the Navy to see the world. And I was fortunate enough to obviously go see some things, even an all-expense paid trip to Afghanistan. But I have had this dual career, and so I've spent time on active duty, and then I joined the reserves and went on to, to get my education. But I always continued to stay in the reserves, and I felt like that there was always such a good synergy between being in the reserves and what was really happening in the SBIR program, because one of the largest agencies is, of course, focused on national security and defense. So that's really how I sort of evolved. And one thing that I would say about the SBIR program is that for me, it really resonates with my value system and what I believe about our country and supporting entrepreneurs and really making a difference in the world. And I've had, of course, the pleasure of working with a lot of different businesses over those 30 years. And I can honestly say that if it weren't for the SBIR program, some of those companies would have never, ever gotten off the ground. So I see the value of it. And of course, I often say to people, I've never met an entrepreneur with one idea, and I've watched the American dream in action every day.
Thank you so much. And I really like, I feel the same way. I say all the time, the SBIR program is the best program in the federal government. And I've enjoyed it so much. I had a background in it with the DoD as well, and love and hope that this is, the rest of my career is here. And like Danette said, and you were speaking to as well, this is, small businesses are so foundational, important to, our country, the economy. And the SBIR program is really, facilitating and fostering that innovative piece, which is really, really important as well. And I love it. So thank you so much. And I wanted to be able to hear that from you. And I appreciate you indulging me by sharing that, because I want to hear more about what Minnesota SBIR is, and I think it's really important that folks understand the wealth of information and expertise you're bringing from this space to be able to lead this organization that you have. So, can you tell me more about Minnesota SBIR Inc.?
Absolutely. So we are a startup in every sense of the word. We were organized in October of, well, actually it was March of 2021. Where I finally made the decision to launch this nonprofit. I could have retired, but I chose not to. And so it took like a year and a half to really launch it in October of 2022. And it's a private nonprofit organization, and it has this focus to serve as a liaison and a support organization for companies that are pursuing SBIR funding from any of the agencies. And so I always kind of see us as a liaison between the businesses that are here in Minnesota with those federal opportunities across all the agencies. And so our work is really help to educate, folks on what these programs are, because frankly, it's really gotten complicated over the years. But then we do a lot of deep coaching and support to help companies get to the winner's circle, to the funding circle, and that they help start down that journey towards commercialization. So we support a lot of companies across different technology sectors and opportunities, work very closely with the University of Minnesota and Mayo Clinic, because there's a lot of technologies that are coming out of our other institutions that, of course, have an opportunity with SBIR funding as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so to clarify, and you touched on this, you're not part of the government. This is, like you said, a nonprofit organization, and your goals are to help potential offers to the SBIR TTR program. So fantastic. I'm so glad that this exists, because like you said, the program is complicated, and as there's more safety kind of things put in place and that sort of thing, it can become very complicated. And we're looking for the best innovation that has the potential to be able to transition or commercialize for the use for the Homeland Security. And so that's what we want our goal to be, not, finding and hurdling over the obstacles that are there to get here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I should add that we're funded through the Small Business Administration, a federal and state technology partnership program, and then we're also funded through the state of Minnesota. We received a legislative appropriation this year, and to help scale our organization to provide more support to the companies that are in our portfolio. That's
excellent segue to what I wanted to kind of talk about next, which is, what is the kind of two-part question? What types of businesses do you think should be looking at Minnesota SBIR Inc. as a potential resource, and what is the scope of who you help? So can you talk about the business, what the characteristics are of the businesses that are best fit for your assistance?
Certainly. So we're just strictly Minnesota focused. I have colleagues across the country in other organizations that also have funding through the SBA FAST program, and you can find those your organization in your state at sbir.gov. Just look for assistance or local assistance. It's really important to get connected to your own resources in your state, because they can help demystify this process for companies, and to make sure that you're a good fit with the programs. These are highly competitive programs. First of all, it's all science and technology based. There's a strong focus on commercialization. And so you, and the other thing is that as a company, you want to be thinking about, if you're not already a government grantee or contractor and you're looking at this for the first time, there's some administrative requirements and so forth that come along with federal funding. And so you have to be in a good position as a company to be able to manage those dollars appropriately for your business. And I think that, if you make that decision that, yes, I'm going to learn how to do this, then you can take that learning and apply it to other agencies. So as I've always said, as a company, I've never been an entrepreneur with just one idea. So it's like, how can we leverage these programs to support our internal R&D and our focus on commercialization, or converting research into products and services so that we generate revenues? How can we use these two programs, or this, SBIR program through DHS, or the other programs through the other agencies, to support our work?
Right, and so it is important for folks to understand that SBIR, and we don't have an STTR program at DHS, but both those programs are for fundamentally, we start at the development of the technology, the concept, feasibility, that sort of thing. We're not, the SBIR dollars for phase 1, phase 2 are not for sale. So if you have a product and you're trying to get it to the government and it's already, kind of commercially ready, SBIR is not it. But like you said, if you came up with that idea and you got that all the way to commercialization, then, great. Check out the topics for DHS. I might have a good idea for how to help DHS meet its Homeland Security mission needs. So that's, great. And so you talked about being prepared. And so one of the things that, we're really trying to spread the word about, a requirement for the SBIR program is you have to be registered at sam.gov. And unfortunately, over time, that process has come to take more time to complete. So we're trying to spread the word. If you're interested or think you may be interested, get the sam.gov registration completed. Do you have other suggestions on kind of first steps? We're in the pre-solicitation. I said it right, didn't it? We're in the pre-solicitation period right now. So this is an opportunity for the companies to kind of be looking at, okay, let's see how we might be able to be prepared for the solicitation. Do you have thoughts, ideas, suggestions there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the end of the day, I read through the solicitation last night, and of course highlighted things and so forth. And you will want to do the same thing. Read the solicitation. You're going to have to refer to it multiple times throughout the process of actually preparing your application. And I will say, with sam.gov, thank goodness it only has to be done. Have to renew every year, but it is a bit of a challenge to get through sam.gov. So if you have, most states have what they call an Apex Accelerator, this is a program that's funded through the Department of Defense, and they can help you register your firm in sam.gov. There's multiple steps through this process, and you really have to make sure that your registration is done correctly, so that you're able to submit your application and not have any issues arise at the time that you hit the submit button. And I've been on too many calls over the years where things have not gone as planned, and unfortunately the company wasn't able to submit their application. So this is a big deal. So I say that, make sure your SAM registration is done correctly, and that, hopefully, you're not going to run into any challenges, but there is help available, and it's free, and it's through Apex Accelerator. you asked me something else, Dusty, and now I totally forgot about it.
Fine, you covered everything. But so just basically trying to, if there are ideas or
Oh.
suggestions on what they should be doing during the pre-solicitation, I think you hit a lot, but if there's something else that sounds,
Yes.
it looks like you might have another idea.
So it isn't always just about the science. I mean, yes, it's very much the part of the phase 1 proposal that scientific and technical merit is really important, because that's, to me, like the first rung on the ladder that you have to meet, you have to surpass in order to be considered, further on for that funding. The other piece is the market section. And this is where I see sometimes first-time applicants, or maybe, looking at SBIR first, they think they really got the science piece nailed down. But when it comes to the market section, that's where they really fall short. So again, get some outside help, and you can get it through the Small Business Development Center or through the SBA, the FAST program in your state. Really think through what that market strategy is going to be for that particular technology or product that's going to come out of this project. We're looking at taking something essentially from the lab all the way to the marketplace, and you want to make sure that you have a pretty good handle on what that might look like. It's going to change, no question about it, but you're going to want to look at it very closely, really understand, how does this fit within my business, my goals, my objectives, and how do I think I'm going to be able to move this down this path towards commercialization to the marketplace. And you may even want to think about, what is that commercialization component, and then knowing full well you have to go through R&D in order to get to C, the commercialization stage. And also, what are the sources of funding will your company need in order to help bring that solution to the marketplace?
Funding or support?
Yeah. SBIR funding is not going to get you all the way home. So you're going to have to be thinking about, how else am I going to capitalize my company? How am I going to finance this project? What kind of strategic relationships I might need in order to support this effort. We like to see letters of support from stakeholders as part of a phase 1 proposal, because then it shows that there's market validation or interest in what's being developed.
And I will provide a little bit more context for that, just to make sure folks are approaching that thoughtfully. They have to make the decision. The number of pages for phase 1 submission is limited. And so when you're looking at your letters of support, I think, Pat has experience in this and helping folks to try to make a determination, but think about what value a letter of support is bringing. Sometimes we'll get letters of support from, in a proposal submission from DOD, and it's like, well, that is great. And I hope DOD is interested in funding your technology, because we're funding for Department of Homeland Security. So really think about, as you're, including 10 letters of support isn't necessarily like the lock for, we're going to get in. So it's a balance. You have to be able to address, like that's the technical merit piece of it for phase 1. The second most important criteria is the key personnel qualifications. So you need to be able to demonstrate that there's folks who are supporting this effort that provide a likelihood of success. And then in phase 1, we are still looking at what is that commercialization strategy, and you do have to be thinking of that. But it's always important. It's not as uncommon as I'd like, where people don't understand. So read the topic. The topic tells you who our intended user is. And while it might be fantastic if there is a DoD application, we have to, use the taxpayer dollars that we're provided for the best use for the Department of Homeland Security. So that's super important, and thanks for providing that information.
So I'd like to just add a little bit of color to that. So there's $4 billion available each year in the SBIR and STTR programs and 11 agencies, and then of course all their different components and so forth. But think of them not only in some ways as the customer, but they are an investor. They're non-dilutive, you know, but they are investing in your company and your project. And as a company, you know, if you get the phase 1, that's going to open up all these other opportunities for phase 3, which is really where you want to be headed, you know, to commercialization, because there's the possibility of sole source contracts in phase 3. This is huge. So really think through, you know, what that looks like, not only from the government perspective, but also from the commercial perspective, because as a company, you're going to have customers hopefully in both camps. And so you want to be able to make sure that what you're developing and commercializing is going to be useful to both sectors.
I mean, yeah, and I love the investor, because it doesn't do us any good to give money to something and then not get to transition or commercialization. We are invested in the technology success, and that inherently includes you as a small business, because we need it to be able to be commercialized. We need it to be able to transition. We need it to get to that stage of being able to be used as a product. So that's really important. So we talked about seeking help, which is great, and everybody should do it. And especially in areas where, you know, there's small businesses are, you know, inherently they're smaller and have areas where they may not have expertise or experience or whatever. And so that's great. They do have to have a couple things that they're prepared to bring to the table, just as their core. And can you talk about what's important for them to have as a small business themselves?
Well, you talked earlier about having the right people on the bus, you know, essentially, and making sure that your team is qualified to carry out the research that you're proposing to do. Now, does that mean everybody has to have a PhD? No. So when you look at your team, you look at internally, what are my capabilities? And then what do I need in order for this project to be really successful? And some, you know, because SBIR allows you to subcontract out up to 1/3, you will want to think about who else can I bring on board on this team that's outside of my entity. I still have to stay within the confines of the level of work, but I want to have a well-rounded team to work together to carry out this research. And I'm a big proponent of, you know, I say more the merrier, as long as, you know, you stay within the confines of the 2/3, 1/3 requirement for SBIR. But, you know, really taking a look at, you know, who is going to serve as the principal investigator or the project director. This is a really important role. You want to make sure that that person has the scientific and technical background to carry out the work that's being proposed, but also, you know, other people that might be in the company that might contribute in some way, and then certainly, you know, people external. And I'm a big proponent of having academic involvement if it makes sense for the project. So reach out to your universities or other entities to help, you know, build that team around that project, because not one person has everything that they need in order to be successful. You know, it's those days are gone. It used to happen, but not anymore.
I used to be able to operate my you know, TV by myself, but you know, now I sometimes have to ask for help there.
Well, and even running the nonprofit, you know, it's not just me. I've got, you know, other people in key positions that are, you know, helping to support the growth and the sustainability of this organization. And And it's, we've got consultants, but we also have, the back office support, which, for accounting, that's not my thing. So I have someone that's an expert in that area, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yes, luckily that is, many people's thing.
Yeah.
But they're not, to be clear, they're not coming to you saying, hey, we're interested in getting funding, where's the proposal that you're going to give us that we're going to submit? Like they're coming with the idea. They still have to, write up the documents for submission. They're still responsible for, meeting all the requirements. You guys are, assistants, not. And so you talk about it from your perspective of what your role is related to what they're responsible for and what you can help with.
Yeah, I think so. So the first thing that we are an assistant, a support coach, a Sherpa, if you will. We want to make sure we vet everybody that we work with. We want to make sure that they're a good fit with the programs, first of all. And so we ask, 5 questions. What's your technical innovation? What are the technical challenges and objectives? What's the market opportunity for your idea, your concept? And then tell us about your company and team. And then, what are the scientific or technical literature publications that support your innovation? And we're not critiquing the science. We are just wanting to make sure that this is going to be a good use of your time, because this is a major lift. And we want to make sure that you're a good fit and that we're also investing our time and energy into you and your project. And so that's really important. And then the other piece is, so I always tell people there's no question that's off limits. If you have the question and you haven't found the answer to it, then of course we're here to help answer it. And if I don't have the answer, then I'm going to call Dusty.
Yeah, there's somebody, you're going to look at the
somebody, from the agency to help, address that need that you have. And then, we do proposal reviews, budget reviews. We'll look at the market opportunity section. Is it strong enough? We're just here to help shepherd you through that process to get to that submission date in the future. And then we pray that, the project will get selected for funding. I mean, it is, to me, it's a team effort in that we have here in Minnesota. And it is not something, I've done this for 30 years and I learn something new all the time, not only about the technologies, but just, the agencies and how they're doing things. And having gone to the National SBIR conference last week where I had the, pleasure of meeting Dusty in person, I was amazed at just how many differences there are among the agencies. And I just really feel sorry for the newcomers, because it must be really, really overwhelming for them.
And I agree. And I've also talked about this, just as a brief thing, because I do feel, some empathy for folks trying to partner with multiple. You do have to be careful that you can't just assume one SBIR program is the same as another. I work with the Department of Navy, SBIR, TTR programs, but I also tell people if we made it such that every one of them, because we have such different missions, we have different budgets. You talked about the $4 billion. We have, around $18 million at DHS on a good year right now. We're going to fundamentally run the program different than the Air Force, which has nearly $1 billion, right? So if we had to do everything the same way, it would make it even more onerous for the small businesses, because then you'd have to meet the DoD's requirements, the DHS's requirements, DOE, all the way down the line, and we wouldn't have that flexibility to make it work best as a partnership between us and the small businesses that we're. So I love that the program exists. I also love that there's a level of flexibility to let us do this, in a way that's most beneficial for the small business.
Right, and you bring up a really good point. So you really have to understand in this case, the mission of DHS, and really take some time to understand that. I mean, we know it on the surface, but really understand, how is this project going to help DHS meet a mission need that they have? Because they're looking for a solution. They've identified this as a problem. Now they're looking for solutions. And I remember correctly, Dusty, sometimes you fund 2-3 projects under one topic. Is that?
On average, we will do 3 phase 1s, and then we are always intending on doing a phase 2, precluding, a change in our missions, new needs, or, if there's not anything that really looks promising to move forward. But we're always intending on funding at least 1 phase 2. Sometimes we do 2 phase 2s per topic.
So I think, yeah.
Well,
These are awesome programs. I mean, this is, it changes people's lives. It changes the trajectory of companies. And going back to the company that might have an existing product, of course, this isn't a procurement situation. We're still in the R&D stage, but we're moving towards procurement. But as a company, you might want to be thinking about, how do I maybe leverage these programs to support the 2nd or 3rd generation product ideas or concepts that I have? And that's where being very strategic and thoughtful about how you engage with these programs is really, really important.
So I know you and I can both go on all day. So I'm gonna pull the plug just right here, but don't leave. I'm going to talk about the teaser I had with the new phase, time for new phase here for a second, and hopefully we'll have a slide coming up that talks about that. But while I'm talking about the new phase, and hopefully folks can do a little bit of multitasking, make sure you're getting in questions into the Q&A, because we're going to come back with Pat and Danette if we have questions for either of them. So make sure you're getting those questions in now so we can go back and have those questions for them. So it's time for a new phase. The new phase is a phase 0. So I didn't include this in the beginning, and it wasn't something that we had prior, because the phase 0 is different than phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we're talking about moving through the R&D and the T&E and the development into the commercialization, and there's contracts, there's timeframes, there's funding, all of that associated with those exercises. Phase 0 is a new program that we're starting, and other SBIR agencies have a phase 0. Ours is, again, tailored to what's best for the DHS mission and budget. But its intention is to help potential applicants understand the process of the SBIR, what the submission process looks like, and provide access to resources for new applicants and collaborate with the individuals committed diversifying the science and engineering workforce. I will say this is our first year, and so we're working on some of the fundamental elements of the program, and it's something we plan on being able to offer in the coming years and are hoping to really increase the robustness of this. But for right now, I want folks to be aware that there is the opportunity to participate in a series of webinars that are talking about the different parts fundamentally of the proposal submission, and how to prepare for that when the solicitation comes out. So you're not just all of a sudden it's not being sprung on you. So we talked about in one of the episodes the SBIR.gov registration and making sure you're doing that. And then there's a piece of this that we're setting up and is available this year where you can sign up for mentoring, and a piece of that mentoring includes the assistance with getting an understanding of what the support organizations are out there that are within the scope. So like Pat said, she's in Minnesota. So if you're a small company and you have to answer some questions to ensure that this is something that is a viable path for you, but that we can say, okay, well, there's, Minnesota SBIR Inc., and they may be able to help you. Now, all of these associations, you do not have to come through the SBIR Phase 0 program to find them. We just want to be able to take a step to help folks identify which ones are out there, because there are a surprising number of them that are available. And we want to make sure that those organizations understand the DHS SBIR program. So that's all part of what we're doing. So thank you for that moment to talk about the new Phase 0 program that I'm super excited about, and I'm hoping to increase the robustness of as we move forward. Now, I do want to offer an opportunity, and hopefully I can put my glasses, to go through some of the questions that we have received in the Q&A. So this first one's gonna be an interesting one. Does DHS expect that the current tax law will affect participation of small businesses in its SBIR program? Under current law, an SBIR contractor now must pay tax equal to 30% of the contract revenue, or 3 to 6 times greater than the actual fee or income generated by the contract. This has actually been something that's been discussed amongst the SBIR community. We have limitations. We don't have the ability to step in and alleviate a tax requirement. So we do understand that this is something that's going to be challenging and can impact the participation in the SBIR program. Unfortunately, we do not have control over that, that particular requirement for the federal government. So maybe a DHS hub agreement partnership may further no legs or movement in STTR or SBIR, maybe a DHS hub agreement partnership may further provide. I don't understand that comment. I'd love to, if you want to provide some further clarification, we can do that. Okay, so we understand that once you reach the Phase 3, this becomes an acquisition process. I'll provide a caveat if we don't get to that in the question. However, in most cases, the government acquisition process is set up for larger companies and traditional suppliers. Is there an entity within DHS to help transition SBIR 3 to get over the barrier to fit DHS acquisition? So Phase 3 is non-SBIR dollars. It's labeled commercialization. I will say Phase 3 being non-SBIR dollars does not have to be for acquisition. It can be for further T&E. It can be for further development if there's a DoD SBIR that DHS may be able to leverage, and there's a part of the organization that wants to put their funding on it to further tweak it. The Phase 3 is defined as derives from, extends, or concludes prior SBIR work. So it's not strictly that definition. Although we, as Pat said, we all understand there is traditionally a gap between what can be funded under the SBIR program. We're doing our best to try to address that in many ways, but there is traditionally still that gap between what the Phase 2 SBIR can fund and getting to a Phase 3. But I will say that there is, in terms of the way to be able to assist, as I mentioned, there is the ability to do a directed award, and the government is, under the policy directive, there is guidance that provides for us to be using SBIR technologies and awarding to contracts, Phase 3 contracts, to the SBIR awardees for their SBIR technologies to the greatest extent practicable. So we are constantly being contacted by folks throughout the DHS organization saying, hey, if we find an SBIR, or we think we may have found an SBIR that could be beneficial. And I would say yes, and Danette knows, we work very well with contracts. I'm going to put her on the spot to make her agree with that. But, we work well with contracts. I have worked with OCPO to help them develop some guidance for contracting officers who are looking to be able to support a Phase 3 acquisition. Sorry, meant transition from Phase 2 to Phase 3 acquisition process. Okay, I think I addressed it, but thank you for the clarification. Our company traditionally provides software engineering services, but is interested in getting to SBIR. We have talented engineers, but no existing products or prototypes per se. Are there mechanisms to find SMEs to partner with and start developing prototypes? Pat, would you like to speak to that?
Oh, I think probably the best place to start looking for possible collaborators, SMEs, is of course your university. And also, you know, SBIR.gov, the awards database. You can take a look at, you know, some of the other companies that have been funded that, you know, are within your technology space. You know, it's really, you know, finding that talent to help work on those new innovative ideas or concepts that you have. And I think and associations, you know, IEEE, you know, there's an association for every technology area. So I would reach out to any of those organizations that align with your visions and your opportunities.
Have you heard anything about DOE's new partnership website?
Yes, it's active. It's you know, you can just go out. I think it's probably on the DOE SBIR website, as they'll have a link to it. Yeah.
I will say I'm hoping we put out a information quarterly email. So if you're on this webinar and want to sign up for the SBIR to receive the emails from our office, I promise we won't spam you, but we're hoping to be able to provide, we have a section in our information quarterly about what's happening with other SBIR agency offices. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to provide a little bit of information in there about their new initiative, which I'm excited to hear about myself. Okay, thank you. Next one, regarding DHS 241-002, what is the current status quo of the DICOS, I'm saying it correctly, data that is captured by DHS scanners? Where does it go? So I'm going to put this out there that right now in the pre-solicitation, there is the opportunity for you to email topic SMEs that are identified in that pre-solicitation. I'm saying it correct. Hopefully Danette's still listening in to hear me say it correctly, pre-solicitation. So if you go to the Appendix A that she referenced and look at the topic write-ups, the last part of that topic write-up will have the email address for to email a topic SME, and you can ask technically clarifying questions. Can't ask them, should I do this? Should I do that? Is this a good idea? What do you recommend? Can't do any of that. And you need to get that question in to make sure that you have time to get a response before the pre-solicitation period ends, and make sure that you're asking that appropriately. I wish I was as smart as knowing all the information about all of the topics, but that's why we provide this opportunity. Danette, do you have anything else to speak to about the emailing the folks during the pre-solicitation? Did I capture all the important information? You're on mute.
Thanks for pointing that out. I don't have anything further to add. I think you've captured it. Thanks.
And I said pre-solicitation.
You did. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I expect a gold star in my email, Danette. All right. Okay. There's so I see somebody asking for more information to be emailed. I would suggest to either, if you have a question, to send it to the email address or to sign up for our mailings. How many awards are expected per topic for phase 1? So we don't have a defined set. We have we budget to be able to do an average of 3 phase 1s per topic. That said, you know, we may not find 3 that are relevant for a particular topic. That's just generally what the expectations are. All right. So more along the same. How do you bring a concept to phase 0? What if you're a first subject matter expert? So I would go to the phase 0 website to learn more about the phase 0 and how to become engaged in that, because you're not really bringing the concept to phase 0. You're bringing that forward if you're looking for mentorship. Okay. And posting a link to access the pre-solicitation. I think we were doing that, but if we can do that again. I have a company in Canada, how to do in US. This program is only open to US companies. So unfortunately, if you have a company in Canada, you're not eligible for the SBIR program. Well, when will DHS cycle through the next list of DHS phase 1 solicitation from the current 5 or 6 listed? I'm not sure what I understand that question, but I will say that we have an annual solicitation. Typically, this is the time frame that we're doing it in. That said, as Danette emphasized very emphatically, any future pre-solicitations or solicitations are subject to change. So you'd have to stay tuned with DHS. All right, I will open soon in USSA branch. So it does have to be a US based company. It can't just be that you have a branch in the US. It has to be a US based company. Okay, Pat, I know that we didn't get as many questions for you as I anticipated, but do you have anything to kind of do close up with, to ask, to do last thoughts, to make sure folks, if you want to emphasize something you already said, or you had a brilliant new thought?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm looking here at Cedric's question here. Can you apply for more than one SBIR? Yes. And so as a company, this is what I tell companies in Minnesota is you want to create a multi-agency strategy based on all the projects that you envision for your business, and then to do the search across all the agencies to make sure that there's a good fit and that you have a pipeline developed so that you're capitalizing your company, you're pursuing those dollars. I mean, because there's no limitation on how many applications you can submit, but certainly if you're a new entity, you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you in securing funding.
And it is important to look at each agency. So NSF, for instance, does have a limitation on how many you can.
Well,
submit.
yeah, they have one. You can only have one award at a time with the NSF.
Yeah. And I also want to make sure that folks understand you can submit the same work in a proposal to 2 different agencies, but you must identify that you are submitting a proposal with substantially similar work or any overlap, and then you're only legally able to accept the contract for one of those proposals. You're not allowed to get paid to do work 2 times. So just make sure that
you can't submit the same proposal.
And think about
you can submit the same proposal, you can only get funded for one of them. So
so you will have to choose if you're chosen to or selected by both to pursue an award. You'll have to make that decision. So
if you have like platform technology and maybe it's got different fingers and there's going to be significant difference between the scope of work, I mean, you could submit a project to 2 different agencies, get funded by those agencies, but it's very distinct, different work, even though it might, sort of converge at some point in time into some product in the future. So, so let me talk to Chuck's question here about commercialization. Okay. And commercialization is commercial or government. So, I think so as a company, you're looking at where can I, sell my new product or service, and you'll want to be looking at both opportunities.
I think we do have to, I'd love to be able to answer all the questions. I do think we have to, to move on, but I don't want folks, I'll let folks know how they can, if we weren't able to get to your question, I'll make sure that I provide information before we leave on how they can do that. But I do anything other than some of the questions we have that you'd like to put as a final thought, Pat?
Just be thoughtful and strategic in everything that you do. One thing that I didn't mention is that, sometimes with first-time applicants, they propose way too much than what the budget allows. So just be very thoughtful about, what you're trying to achieve in phase one to to demonstrate technical feasibility, because that's all we're really trying to do in phase one is demonstrate technical feasibility. And when you look at the budget, you have direct costs, indirect costs, you have a profit or fee, and then you have this technical and business assistance. So those four categories make up that budget. So with $150,000, you're going to have to be very thoughtful about how, what you're going to propose, what it's going to cost, and you're going to make sure that you cover all those other cost categories, because it's to the benefit of the company.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Yeah.
Danette, do we final words of wisdom from our contracting officer?
Hi, Dusty, Pat. You guys are doing an excellent job. I wish I had some higher wisdom to give the audience here, but I have nothing to add. I just want to say thanks again. And I really do hope that you guys out there, you've taken notes because you have these two sages here who are giving you some valuable information. So thanks again, Dusty, and nothing else from me.
I cannot thank you, Danette or Pat, enough for joining me. This is far more beneficial with your participation. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to provide some information on some resources for potential offers or folks interested in the SBIR program. We have our Deconstructing SBIR video series. So there's other videos out there. There's a bit.ly to get to it. This is the latest version and we'll get this out there as soon as possible. We have some success stories so you can hear about some of the things that have happened through the program. Like Pat said, some things that have occurred that wouldn't have occurred without the program. Very, very proud to have been any small part of that. And then there's the DHS SBIR portal. I would recommend looking at that now because this is the portal through which submissions to the solicitation, when it is posted, will direct you to be able to submit your proposals. So you can register to have an account now, get one thing checked off the list. And then check out the S&T partnership guide. So this is an excellent resource if you're not familiar with the DHS mission scope and what's being done in the R&D world. This is put out specifically by the Science and Technology Director at S&T, which is where DHS SBIR is administered from. And it talks about some of those different areas and offers some resources to be able to learn more, which I think is really important. And then also very important, at the bottom of the screen, stsbir.program@hq.dhs.gov. I'll say it again, stsbir.program@hq.dhs.gov. If your question didn't get answered today and you'd like to get a follow-on to that related to the program or anything like that, please feel free to email us there. If you have technically clarifying questions about the topics, you need to review those topics now to determine if you do. You need to get those questions in now to make sure that you get an answer to it, because once the period ends, the ability to get those answers ends, and there's no, oh, I have follow-up or anything like that. So make sure you get those questions in now. I would really like to thank everybody that joined us. I look forward to seeing all the fantastic ideas that are going to come from the small businesses that are looking to participate in the program with us. And again, just very proud to be able to do this. So thank you, everybody. Have a great Tuesday.
Thank you, Dusty. Danette.